Hey guys, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to use Clay without burning your Clay credits. The problem is that you're using Clay inefficiently and wasting credits and are unsure how to get the most out of it, or you've been burned by running through all your credits. And I know this because I've spoken to so many different clients in consulting, on consulting calls, where they just struggle with this. So the fix is I'm going to show you how you use Clay as efficiently as possible so that you don't waste credits, and show you which plan is also best for your use case as well. So why you should listen to us very quickly. We're certified Clay experts. We've built hundreds of tables that have helped our clients generate thousands of leads, and we've been doing this for well over 2 years now. Cool. So let's dive into this step by step. So what to do? The first thing that I'm going to cover is connecting your own API keys. It's really, really basic, but pretty much. Clay is a big spreadsheet that connects a whole bunch of integrations, essentially, right? Now you have access to pretty much loads of different softwares and loads of different enrichment tools and everything like that. So you can take your data and then find a whole bunch of more information around that data, extrapolate it, etc., with Clay. All right, it's super, super powerful, but most people are just not getting the most out of it at all because of a couple of really simple mistakes. So first thing, with connecting your own API keys, one caveat in all of this, and this is really, really important, is you want to make sure that you're only connecting your API keys if you're using something or you're using a particular enrichment over and over again. For example, finding emails, right? If you're using Clay to build lead lists, it's more than likely that you're going to be using them to find emails and verifying emails. It is so much better if you are going to consistently be building lead lists with Clay to get subscriptions or separate subscriptions to other email tools and email providers, which you can then connect in Clay so that you don't use any Clay credits, right? And basically what this does is it means that your Clay plan doesn't cap how many enrichments that you do, and your Clay plan doesn't cap how many emails that you can find and how many lead lists that you can actually build, right? So you can constantly be testing, iterating and stuff and get things out really quickly. This is really important. Otherwise you'll kind of hit a cap with Clay. So I'll show you an example here. So let's say you are currently using a pre-built Clay waterfall, right? So if we hop into Clay, and we have to go over to here and we go add enrichment, and you would type in work email, right? Click on work email, and you can see here what it says. So it says using your API key, or it says using Clay credits, right? Now, if you don't have your API key connected, it will be a grayed out. So you can see it here, and then it will use 2 credits per row to find a result, right? So for us, for example, we're using these 3, and in our waterfall, we usually won't use these, but you can do if you really want to, if you want to find extra, right? Extra emails. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Then, of course, you've also got your email validation. Again, you're also using the API key. So now, when we build a list, we don't necessarily have to use any Clay credits whatsoever. We pay for these subscriptions individually, and we take and copy those API keys from there into Clay to connect them, so that now we don't use Clay credits, but we use our API key subscription. That premise is the same for any other tool that you use over and over again within Clay, right? If you're using something all the time, it makes sense and is much cheaper to use the actual subscription itself, right? So let's go back to our example here, just in terms of what this looks like in terms of cost savings over the long term. So let's say you're currently using the pre-built workflow waterfall like I showed you in Clay, right? Most people, when they first start out, this will be selected as Clay credits because that's your default. When you connect your API key, you want to make sure that you set it as the default so that in future, whenever you run anything, it's using your API key and using your credits from your subscription to that software rather than using Clay credits, right? I hope that makes sense. So if you have, say, 10K Clay credits, right, that's the $349 per month plan. On average, one email address is going to cost you about 2 to 3 credits to find, right? Give or take, depending on which provider that you use. If you use all of the providers, it only is going to charge you if you find a valid email address, or if you find the email address. So yeah, so you could get so basically with this current method, let's just say you don't use your own API and use Clay credits to do this, you could get a total of 5,000 emails basically with this plan. Like, that's your absolute cap, right? So you've got 10,000 credits within your Clay account, and you don't use an API key, you don't use your own API key, and you use the Clay credits to find email addresses. You are basically capped at getting 5,000 email addresses, absolute max, right? 2 Clay credits, 5,000, etc., right? So in which case you would have spent basically $0.07 to find one email address, right? So to get one email address, you're spending that much money, right, per email. You get 5K emails for $349, which is not a very good deal, right? So you can't, and also the other thing as well is you can't do anything else with Clay once your account is out of credits, unless you obviously upgrade, top up, etc. Right? So really, really inefficient if you want to do other enrichments, like, I don't know, you want to find this company's competitors, you want to find, do they have any job posts? You want to find, do some research and scrape their website. You want to, find what are their LinkedIn posts. You want to find, like, are they running ads? Like all of these different things, you now can't really do them because you've hit your limit on Clay, right? And all you've gotten out of it was 5,000 emails. Way more efficient to go directly to the subscription, which yes, you will pay more for, which I'll show you in a sec. So if you get the subscription to, say, for example, Prospio, or any other tool, and you can get multiple tools, right? It doesn't have to just be one. You can get any tool that you prefer, right? You could have Rocket Reach, Wizard, etc., like all of these different ones, and you can connect them all to Clay so that now you use their subscription and they have a lower price per email address. So basically for this, it's going to be $99 for 5,000 emails. So you can see here, like $99, 5,000 credits. That's going to get you 5,000 emails. So your total cost per email is 0.02 basically. So for a third of the price, you get the same number of emails. Now, of course, that's added on top of your Clay subscription. So you're paying $349 for Clay, then $99 for Prospio. But now you have full use of Clay to do all the enrichments and all the stuff that it's actually good for. So, and again, this is really only applicable if you're using something over and over again, right? You're finding emails is probably something you're going to be using over and over again. So with the first method, you get 5,000 emails and can do basically nothing else with Clay or use it to its full potential. With the second method, it allows you not to use credits, but rather to use your subscription API key. So now you can use credits for any of the other types of enrichments that you want to do with that list, right? Which is the power of Clay, because you can build your custom data set so that you can have the most targeted, segmented lists and outreach, basically, right? And again, one big caveat, only sign up to the softwares, like I said, and it's really important that you use all the time within Clay. If you're using emails all the time, it's worth getting one or two providers that you stick with and you think that they get you good results. Buy the subscriptions, connect the API key. Here is how you actually do that, because that's probably what some people are going to be thinking here. So if I go to, let's just say I sign up to Prospio, we use it all the time. So if I come over to here and I click API, right? I'm not going to do that just because it'll show the API key, but you click API, you literally just copy it. You come into Clay and you go to, you can do it a couple of different ways actually. So if you go to Prospio, right? Or you typed in, so say you type in Prospio, so you want to find the email with this, you go find work email, and then you can see here, select Prospio account. It's going to default to Clay Manage Prospio account, which is going to cost you 2 credits. But if you click add account, you can just copy paste your API key. So obviously that's not what the API key looks like, and then you can name it, right? And then one important thing is set as default. So you want to make sure that it's set as the default and you're not using the Clay credits or anything like that, right? So in future, whenever you use a waterfall, whenever you try and find an email address with Prospio, it will use your subscription, right? Which means now you're finding your email addresses with a separate provider, and then you can do all the other stuff that you want to do in Clay, and you wouldn't have spent a single credit. And now you can actually spend credits where you can find data that is actually like interesting and basically enrich the leads as much as you can, right? So that's how you would do it. And again, another really good example of this is OpenAI, right? If you are anything like me, I use AI all the time within Clay workflows, mainly just because it's so good for scoring, for researching. Basically, when you pull a static list from, say, SalesNav, Apollo, any of these things, they don't give you really good control over the filters. Like, of course, you can put in keywords and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of them are miscategorized. So one of the biggest things that you don't want to do in Outbound is reach out to the wrong people, obviously. So AI allows you to research and filter your lists even further by actually going onto the website, scraping them and all this kind of stuff to find out information about, okay, what does this company actually do, and then classify them and things like that. Like, that's one of the use cases. You can, of course, use it for personalization, all sorts of different things, right? For more research, etc. Now, if you again use Clay credits for this, you're basically every single time you run a row. So if I was to go into use AI and I go to model and I click on the model and I just find click on any of the models here, 4.0 mini is the one that we use the most, just because it's a good balance between cost and efficiency, and the quality as well. But if you were to use that without your own API key, it's going to cost you 1 credit, right? So again, if you have a list of say 5,000, or yeah, if you have a list of 5,000, it's going to cost you 5,000 credits. It's going to cost you half your subscription, or the max you could do is 10,000. So if you had a list of 10,000, you would then run through it, and that would be your entire clay subscription. So instead, I would recommend, right, going to platform.openai.com and then grab your API key there. Do exactly the same process where you come into here and you go to, let's just say you select one of the models, and you click in here, you go add account, and then do the same thing, right? Copy paste your API key, select it, put it as the default, and then once you've got it as a default, you can then start using it, right? And then if you want to add a new API key for whatever reason, like, I don't know, you can see here, for example, that we have multiple, right? So whenever we're running something, we just select the right API key that we want to use and then go from there. Now, this depends if you're using anything to do with OpenAI, but if you're using, say, for example, you want to use Anthropic, then you would go to Anthropic's website, sign up, get the API key, and then copy paste that across. One thing and one caveat that I will say in using OpenAI or any of these things is they usually have rate limits, as in, if you just sign up to an account, they will not let you get the full access to the API. Usually you'll have to spend and top it up with credits. Those credits are usually 50, like for OpenAI, it's $50. So you have to spend $50 or add $50 to the account and then wait 7 days. And then once you've waited 7 days and spent the $50, or rather just credited that to the account, then it should allow you to start using it properly within Clay, right? And again, if you do that change now, you're finding emails with a separate subscription, and you're using AI to do research and everything. You've got your API key connected to actually run AI. I'll show you here, for example, to actually run AI. And we might use it for, like, here's a good example. We use it to normalize the company name, right? Because when you get it in a database, it's going to give you a company name that just looks weird, right? It's going to be like, .ai or like all sorts of things that would basically give it away that you are sending a mass automated email. So you want to try and normalize the name as much as possible, and in which case we use AI filters and so on and so prompts to do that. You can see here, total cost of provider is this, right? So every single row costs like fractions of a penny, whereas if you were to run that on Clay, that would cost you 1 Clay credit, right? So much more expensive over the long term. And again, this only really applies if you're using something over and over again, right? Because obviously you're probably also wondering, if you get a larger Clay account, can you just use the Clay credits? You probably can. Yes, you can if you wanted to, but it's so much cheaper to, especially for people that are getting started, get the lowest Clay plan, so the $149 per month, and then connect, say, like an email tool, one or two email tools, and OpenAI, and then you should pretty much with that get most of the benefits of Clay of being able to do everything in one place. And then if you're building, like, say, smaller lists, you can then use some of the enrichments. Like, any of the enrichments will usually cost you, a credit, a couple of credits, basically, right? So, and you could, find someone's LinkedIn profile. You could enrich that LinkedIn profile. You could find what tech they have on their website and all that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, hopefully that gives you like a bit of an overview of how I would set that up and what that actually looks like, and then kind of just how to get as much value out of Clay as possible. I personally would recommend the 10,000 credits per month plan, just because it allows you to actually connect what's called the HTTP API, which means that if the integration is not already within Clay, as in, like they don't already have an inbuilt integration, like they've already set it up and everything and they've got it connected, you would have to connect it custom yourself, which once you get the hang of it, it's really easy. I'll probably make other videos on doing this, but it just allows you to then connect it to other places. And it also gives you enough, if you are using credits, it'll give you enough credits that you're able to, kind of get most things done within Clay, unless you're obviously doing like crazy volume, in which case this probably isn't the right video for you. So yeah, this is more geared towards obviously beginners and people who are just kind of getting started or trying to understand and get their head around Clay. All right, so that's how I would set things up. Cool. Let's move on to the next thing. So the next one is using conditional formulas more often so that you don't waste Clay credits, right? So what I mean by this is, for example, you can see here it says run condition not met, right? Run condition not met. run condition not met, etc. Right? So in this particular case, I've used an email waterfall. So I have my own subscription to Prospio and my own subscription to Find Email. Now, what I've done is a two-step, right? And you can do as many steps as you want, but this worked fine for us. Where essentially I'm saying run this. So run Prospio, run the first column. It's just going to be a step-by-step. Run this. If it finds the email, fantastic. Then don't find the email here. But if it doesn't find the email here, then try and find the email here, right? And then it will merge the two columns here of this email, and it'll put them into one column, right? Now, all you do for the conditional formula is you scroll down and you put into run settings and then only run if, and then you can just use plain language. So I would just put only run if and then / to basically map in the column, which you'll need to do. So you need to basically say which column you want this associated with. So only run if, and then I would just select email under Prospio, only run if is empty, right? Which means if it hasn't found an email address, I will try and find an email address now for the next column. Generate formula, output's correct, that's it, save, run, etc. Right? Super simple, but it will just help from just running everything and give you these conditionals that basically means that it now won't use anything. Like, this isn't just for saving Clay credits, this is also just in general for saving your own credits. Instead of running the whole thing, you only run it if it's necessary to run it, basically, right? So I've done a little bit of a waterfall here where essentially you're trying to find, does this company have a video on their website, for example? And if they do not have a video on their website, then they go into a specific campaign. If they do have a video on their website, we don't want to reach out with that type of messaging. So we'll do a next step, which is why you can see it says no, run condition not met. And then for video, it has like the condition met basically to run that column. So yeah, that will really help out with just saving on Clay credits and getting the most out of Clay so that you don't waste anything, basically. Cool. On to the next thing. Actually, just one more thing before that. It's really simple to do. Like I said, just go to edit column on any one of the columns and then go to the run settings, and then you can set it up there in plain language, like literally just type in what you need. Cool. And then the third and final one is turn off auto update and scheduling for new tables. So this is really important. There's a couple ways that you can do this. Number one is if you come into bottom right hand corner and it says auto update is enabled for this table. If you are just getting started or you're still relatively new into Clay, I would recommend turning this off. So you would just click into here and then turn off the table, which means that when you import your data and pull in your data, all of the steps that you have in your waterfall or in your workflow, as in, you know, whatever's been built here, will not run unless you physically click here, go run column, and you can then choose number of rows to run or run all rows, right? So you can just click the play button and then it will come up with those, right? So that's one way that you can go around it. Although I would say it can then get, it's one particular way that you can do it, right? The second way that you could do this is you can go into the individual column, and then just actually one more addition to this. This is for the entire table, right? For the entire table. The second way that you can do this is if you click on a particular row and go into here and go to run settings, auto update, you can just turn this off, right? So if I turn this off, you will see that, actually I won't show for this, but it will basically you'll be able to click one by one. It won't run anything unless you run the whole thing. So you can either click one by one, or you can again come into here, run column, and then run the whole thing, right? But you have to manually run the whole thing. So you just have to click in. It's not going to run it automatically. When it is turned on automatically, it means that as soon as I input data, every step in this table is going to start to run, and all of the credits that you have or use, whether that be from your API subscription or Clay credits, will start to be used. So if you want to avoid that and you want to make sure everything is correct before you do that, I would then just set this where you edit the column and you mark this as off. So you only run it if you physically select to run it, or the alternative is to turn off auto update for the entire table. So yeah, those are a couple of different ways. And then the final thing as well that I'll run through really quickly is scheduling. So run this source manually or on a schedule. I would, again, depending on your kind of experience level, I would keep this to manual and then only update on schedule if you are, like, for example, scraping something on a regular basis, if you're monitoring people who have just changed jobs or like anything along those lines, then I would put it to schedule. But just know that if you do have it to schedule and you have the auto update like turned on, the table will run, right? It will just run. So as soon as it's scraped, it will go then step by step into the workflow, and each workflow will obviously run, right? And if that's what you want, fantastic. But I'm saying make sure that you have everything set up correctly before you do that, and make sure that you also have your API keys, connected, and that they are the ones being used, not Clay credits, before you run anything. Because I've heard in the past where people have run the whole thing and they've realized that they're out of Clay credits now because the entire thing has run and they didn't realize it, right? So just try and avoid that by making sure that you click into each of the tables. And this is particularly true if you take like a template or a Clay book from somewhere and then you try and input your data source, because a lot of times, there might be, you'll need to connect your API key, or you'll need to configure some stuff. So make sure it's all configured first and then run the thing, rather than just put it in and it runs and you realize, I'm out of Clay credits, or I've burned a subscription, I've burned through a whole subscription. So yeah, hopefully that all makes sense. Just to kind of finalize everything. Number one, most people who are kind of getting started with Clay use it really inefficiently. This video kind of goes through obviously how to use it more efficiently. Number one, use your own API keys if you're using a particular software or a particular function over and over again. Number two, use conditional formulas. Number three, turn off auto update as well. So yeah, I hope you got some value from that. If you are interested in learning more about how we can kind of help you build some tables, some campaigns and everything from scratch, or you just in general want to have like a consulting session, then you can book that in my calendar in the description below. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.